Welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. This is Lisa Retamoso coming to you from the Nosotros Education Center. Just letting you know that now the weather in Dallas is a balmy 80 degrees. I wish you nice weather. I think it actually will rain, but at least it's warm. So I hope it's a little bit warm where y'all are at. Uh, Let me know if you're not. Maybe we can commiserate or send you some warmth your way. Um, we're meeting again as usual to talk about EOC and talent search, anything and everything about grant writing, since it's on our lunch hour, or maybe you're taking an hour off of work and then going to make it up later, or maybe you're going to watch this later via our YouTube channel or the link to the recording when it's appropriate for you. I'm sharing with you our NEC website, focusing today, just starting off on our professional development trainings. We do have them on WIC courses, which are supposed to be, you know, what's the word? Flexible, and also Leah's putting the link on there. And why is my screen freezing all of a sudden, Leah? Wouldn't you believe it? Let's see here. My screen is looking crazy. Let me stop sharing and share again. I knew something was going to happen. Typical Monday, right? But I've had a good Monday so far. We've done 2 SSS APRs, so I'm glad about that. All right, so I should be back again, Leah. Do you see it now? It doesn't look so crazy. For some reason, it froze on me. Just letting you know, the reason why is because I feel I'm getting really restless since the budget passed last week. Any day now, I believe the RFP or the program application can drop. Something's telling me it could be Talent Search first, only because it's always been Talent Search first. I could be surprised. It could be EOC. Something's telling me that it might be a very short turnaround, like 3 weeks, possibly. I'll be surprised if it's 4 weeks. It could be 3 weeks. And the reason why I want to start on this page right here is because we're totally maxed out. So the only way that I can offer, if you're not already a client of ours for technical reviews or proposal development, and I don't know if anyone else is taking on clients, is if you haven't already, that you might want to invest in purchasing the proposal writing workshops that we have for Talent Search and EOC. Now, the minute the RFP drops for either one, I'm going to go through and re-record or add. I think we could do something like that, Leah, right? I could either re-record or we can add certain things to the course to let you know about some updated information if there's any. I don't anticipate anything being updated, but you never know. So I guess the best we could do at this point with direct assistance would be through our WIC courses, which you could purchase. They're unallowable cost, but you can watch them on demand. Folks out there, if you've used them, they've told me that it's very helpful because you can go back and watch them in order, out of order, or when you've got a specific question or you're focused working on that section, then you can focus and go back and listen to the recording and all the resource materials that are provided there. If you're not sure if you want, if this is for you, for free, we've got the first session for both Talent Search and EOC our WIC course available free of charge, just so you could test out the format, the resources, and see if this is something that you user friendly enough where you want to invest in the rest of the other 9. I believe we have 9 other courses sessions, but we wanted you all to get the first one free of charge. Okay. And also, when you join there, you become part of our group. I forget what they were called before, like a forum. You become a part of our group. We have some free, we have groups here that are reserved for clients that have purchased our online WIC courses. So we have the Talent Search competition and the EOC competition writers forum, basically, or a group. And in there, we will, put out announcements. I put resources. Anytime I, think of something and I want to get the word out to everybody, I put it here. And you can also ask questions here. So this is the one I'm going through, is the Talent Search one, but we also have one for EOC. That comes with when you purchase a WIC course. Okay, so just letting you know about that, because we are getting pretty maxed out. You can also join, we have some free groups or free forums we have besides the talent search competition. So as a member of NEC, you get free access to our some of our resources. And we also have, some public, if you have a general trio question. I see some on Facebook and I try to get to them when I can. But if you want to ask directly for no charge, as long as you're a free member of NEC, you can ask general trio questions. But anything directly related to the proposals we keep in these hidden groups that come with the cost of the online course. Okay. And for those of you that prefer the traditional, just send me the link to the recording and the link to the Google Drive. Let's cut through the chase. I just want that. We also have that available for the same cost. But a lot of people like the course option, but it's whatever, you decide. And again, a reminder that you should be seeing my Google Drive, that we have the Lunch and Learn Google Drive that has a folder for EOC, one for Talent Search, and resources that I try to update as soon as, I find out information. Of course, I'll put the RFP once the minute it comes out. I'm going to let you know through the group. I'm sure we're going to blast it out as well on our open blog, but I'll also upload it here as well. Okay, just wanted to let you know about those resources because I feel this is going to happen any day now. And I'll continue to do the lunch and learns, but they're going to take a different intensity because I'll start focusing on going through the RFP because I need to do it as well. So I might as well, the more the merrier, right? As I go through it, I'll take you along with me. Looking at the CPPs, I'm going to review them probably live along with y'all and seeing them for the first time and giving you my thoughts about that. And also the questions about formatting, things like that. But I urge you, everyone here on the call, you should now have all your drafts done for each section, and you should be finalizing the data collection for both for the EOC and the talent search needs section. That should be the one thing that's, lingering, going back and forth to find the data that shows need, or just being okay with if it's not showing need. Okay, so that's where we are. That's where y'all should be also, so that when the RFP drops, we can concentrate on the formatting, the page length, and the CPPs, and concentrate on those rather than the proposal and everything else at the same time, right? Okay, so let me go back to, let me see. Let's see if we have any questions, okay? And Leah, if you could launch the poll, and I'm with Leah today. Thank you, Leah, for being there. If she's going to launch a poll just to find out how many folks are interested in here that are with EOC and with Talent Search, just in case, okay? So I can launch that. I do have a question here, and we do have the poll, so if you wouldn't mind answering that. And I'm going to go back to the question. Let me see here. Let me see the Q&A here. Do we anticipate a demonstrator rationale section for the grant, which includes a logic model? Great question. What I anticipate, if it's the same as the last couple of competitions, is that one of the CPPs will require demonstrating a rationale, okay, and that it will ask us to choose a program component within the Talent Search and EOC project that demonstrates a rationale, and that we should highlight that on our overall logic model. So not just a logic model for demonstrating that specific rationale, but depending on how they word it, it might be about a certain programming component, which needs to be highlighted on the logic model that you should have anyway drafted for your evaluation plan. But if it does become a CPP, and if it's separate, like it always has been from the proposal, we may not have room to put an evaluation plan, a logic model in the evaluation plan, plus the same logic model in the CPP response. So we may have to put our overall logic model just in the CPP response, but we want to talk about it in the evaluation plan. Okay, we want to mention that we do have a logic model, And that if you have room, fine, put it there. But if not, you could refer to it and say, which is located in the separate CPP, where it highlights a programming component that demonstrates a rationale. Okay, so logic model for sure. If something crazy happens and they don't ask for the CPPs, which I can't imagine they won't, and they don't ask for demonstrating a rationale that mentions a logic model, then you have to do one anyway for your evaluation plan. Nowadays, I would not dare turn in an evaluation plan without mention and the including, if they're not asking for it separately, of an actual logic model. Okay. If it is requested specifically in the CPP, I will talk about it in my evaluation plan and remind the reader 2 or 3 times that it's the actual logic model is located in the separate CPP. Great question, though. Okay. So it's a short answer. Yes, I anticipate that, but I don't think it'll be a different section. It'll be the CPP. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions we got? And Leah, what is the poll here? Let's see what we got. So we got Talent Search. We have some people doing both, and of course, EOC. Thank you for doing that. All right, bring it on, y'all. I know you guys have questions. You can always ask anonymously too. All right, this is your time to ask. There's no silly or unimportant questions at this point. Comments, questions, did anyone hear anything out there? And we are recording, yes, so this is good. Okay, so let me close this. I see something in the chat, but if you could, I'll rephrase it. Okay, so someone has said they've been out of the office for the last 6 months, sabbatical or educational leave. Just wanted to see if you could give me a brief update on grant writing. When do we anticipate that we will be writing? We've been writing. So honestly, you need to catch up, and I'm not here to stress you out, but then I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Okay. I'm stressing out here. So, if you're in a situation where you've been gone for a minute, number one, you want to look at your old proposal from 2021 and tear it apart, deconstruct it, and start updating every single line, review every single line of all the sections. Definitely your needs section. All that data has to be updated. And then in the other sections, you want to go through and make sure although the questions may be the same, our answers will be different. And a lot of us have a lot of language that could be trigger words. And in our Google Drive, we have a whole folder where you can get a list of the trigger words and some guidance there. And also, this is where you want to use ChatGPT and train it to create a project folder that says trigger words and upload the documents that I have in the Google Drive so it can learn. And then you could put each section in and ask it to filter it out and tell you what could be considered a trigger word and what words you can use instead. Okay, do that. Number one, you want to do your budget as well, update it. A lot of us have been living off a carryover. I just worked on a proposal last night where the client had over $100,000 in carryover. So they had been paying for a lot of positions. And then here I come and I have to start at ground zero with the basic budget. And I have to be the bad guy to let them know that there's a lot of positions that they can't afford anymore because they won't have the carryover anymore. So you want to make sure you do that and you write, and it's important right now because I need to write a plan of operation quality of personnel that matches that budget, not the current budget, but what the budget's going to be based on having, no carryover anymore. And a lot of us are used to that. Okay. So hopefully that got you going. Again, I'm not trying to stress. Yeah. So somebody said 30 days or less to submit. I'll be ecstatic if we get 30 days. I'm thinking 3 weeks. Okay. So let's see. CPPs, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing something on AI. I'm guessing something on civics, government courses, government information. I'm thinking about that. So AI and that, and something about workforce possibly. Okay, so that's the only insight. That's why I'm trying to get all my stuff done so I can concentrate on those 2 weeks. Because if it's due in 3 weeks, I want to get it done in 2 weeks. I want to concentrate those 2 weeks on finalizing everything and also including the CPPs. And someone's bringing up the GEPA. Can you review crafting the GEPA 427? You want to go into the folder that's in the Google Drive. And the GEPA, we have examples there. So I would look at the Gear Up one because that's the most similar to Talent Search. And I think we might have another one that maybe you could use for EOC. But you guys can go ahead and work on that GEPA now. You know what it is. You pretty much have an idea of what services you provide. I mean, no one is really going into this blind, as to what we've done in the past. But you want to look at those questions. And then again, this is where, although it doesn't get any points, it needs to be filled out. And you want to make sure you don't use any trigger words. I've heard stories and I've talked to folks who I trust and know that have got canceled last time around, recently, because their GEPA statement had a trigger word. Can you believe it? Not even the proposal, but the GEPA statement. So I urge you to go in there in that folder and look at, I believe it's 4 questions. And, there's examples there that I want you to utilize, but this is where, since it's not being scored, you may want to use something like ChatGPT to help you out. Now, it's got to be a connection to your program, but I mean, we all provide an EOC and Talent Search. Well, EOC doesn't have required services, but we pretty much know and have the same purpose in EOC and Talent Search. We pretty much have the same, like in Talent Search, required and permissible, and EOC permissible services. We have the same identical eligibility criteria practically. We go through we've seen barriers that our students are going through, but this time the barriers have to be based not on ethnicity or a certain, group of gender, but more so on their circumstances. So you have to be very, very careful when you word this. And that's where you could use your ChatGPT to tell you, look, is anything here sound like it's a trigger word, and can you help me draft this? But get familiar with this. It's kind of like a mini proposal, except it doesn't get scored. It just needs to be done. And I'm not worried about the scoring. I just want to make sure I don't put anything in there that could be considered a trigger. Okay, so be very, very careful with that. So go ahead and work on that. You don't want to have to work on that, plus work on your proposal once the RFP comes out. That's not changing. I doubt it. I'll be the first to tell you if the GEPA they've updated again, but they didn't update it for 30 years. I don't think they're going to update it, after 2 years or 3 years. All right, so check that out. We also have, Leah can look up the, when you get a chance, Leah, the exact YouTube video, where we actually spent the whole session talking about the GEPA. So we'll get that going. But you can always go back to our YouTube channel. And I believe you can put some keywords there, or you can see the topic, and it'll be tagged there. Okay. And if we get a chance, we'll get it to you before this session. If not, look for it. Thank you. Okay. Great question though. So, whoever asked, what should I be doing now? Hey, the questions of the GEPA, the answers. You just got to put it on paper. I'm interested to know how programs are incorporating AI into their services. COE mentioned that there's a chance it may be a CPP. Okay. So again, remember how we're Talent Search and we're EOC, and we don't have a lot of money to incorporate it, nor do we ever have a lot of people, students involved or organized in a nice method or expected grouping like Upward Bound does, right? And SSS or even McNair. So I see, if you're just asking me, but everyone out there, if you want to talk to each other in the chat about how you're thinking about doing this, I've seen a lot of information or resources on how to incorporate that. And I'll look for resources to upload into the Google Drive, just curriculum and ideas on how to do it. I think this is very doable. It's just going to be another service offering that we do. When we talk about career exploration, we may replace it or add on a session on what's AI, the good, the bad, the ethics behind it, depending on the detail of what they're asking for. It depends on how deep I'm going to go. And so I've learned through the years not to spend a lot of time obsessed about the CPPs until I know what they are for sure. Because I've been burned before where I've spent a lot of time and effort drafting what we thought would be the CPPs, only to be totally surprised that they weren't like, anything like we expected. So think about them in the back of your head right now. When the RFP drops, that's the first thing you want to dive into. Why? Because you've already done all the other sections or have a draft of all the other sections. Okay. So make sure you get that done. Okay. But I do think it's very doable, even for EOC and talent search. We're not going to, I don't think it's going to require, I can't, I'm speculating here as what possibly could be the requirement. Who knows, maybe they'll require a class just like they did for for talent search. Remember, they wanted us to do computer science. We had to do a course or a workshop. It was very specific. They wanted that done, so we did it. Didn't have to be long. It could have been a couple of days. Some people did 3 or 4 days, a week, or a session. It all depends. Okay. But get everything else done so you can devote your time and effort looking at the details. And believe me, we'll have webinars once we find out what the CPPs are on how to address that. Okay. Working on the objectives. How should I present that we're using absolute number, and should I define it for the reader? Yes, you want to spell it out. We have a session on that again in our YouTube channel. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, Leticia, where we spent time talking about that, specifically about not the percentage change, but the absolute number. And you want to spell it out as though you're talking to a fifth grader. Our baseline is 15%. We're going to put our objective at, I'm just making up stuff, okay, don't quote me, but just to get you an idea, we're at 15% and we're going to go up to 25%. That's a 10 percentage point increase. Percentage point. See, I didn't say percentage. I said percentage point. And you tell the reader, please note, this is the absolute number. Okay. Don't be afraid to break it down like that. Get them to realize what type of math you're using and be consistent about it. All right. So yes, there is a YouTube session where we talked about objectives. I think it was just the last 2 or 3 times we met. And it goes into detail and also shares some slides with some narrative that you might want to utilize from our grant writing workshop and how we spell it out. I always put it there at the very beginning. Please note, we're using absolute, and I put the definition of what's absolute versus percentage increase. I used to use that percentage increase and used to use this calculator, and I was right, but I was so right I was wrong, meaning that it was crazy because I would be able to convince the reader of my math, and they were following the logic. They're like, okay, percentage increase, I gotcha. Until I came to a baseline that was super low, like our college, the percentage of folks that have a college degree usually is very low, right? In the single digits. And for some reason, I had the readers with my persistence objective when I use the percentage change, not the percentage point absolute number. And for graduation with rigorous, even college enrollment. But when it came to the degree attainment, and I said that we had only 8% of the individuals in the target area had a college degree. And so when I said I wanted to go to 10%, and I showed and said that it was like a 20% increase from 8 to 10, they were like, oh, no. That's only 2 percentage points. So they started to use the other math against me. So I said, forget that. I'm just going to use absolute math so there's no confusion. Okay. But you make sure you're not confused. So go back and watch that YouTube video on the objectives. And if you can't find it, let us know and we'll put something out there. And maybe, Leah, we can make a little note that if they're interested in looking at the CPP, if you could put the link when we post the overall recording for today. And then maybe we can put a specific link to the session about the explanation about the absolute percent number versus the percentage change. Okay.
I
We
put
can
a
do that.
couple links for the YouTube videos in
Oh,
chat.
great. Thank you. And could we go ahead and double down on it when we post this link as well, just in case? I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Leah, because people like me get talking or they're like looking and chatting with other people and they forget to copy and paste the link. So I appreciate that. Thank you for being able to multitask these. She's awesome, right? She can do these 10 things at once. I could barely talk to y'all and click the button, but she's already gone to YouTube and gotten that there. Yeah, you're welcome. Again, I'm don't want to stress you out. I'm motivating you. I'm motivating you to get this done. You don't want to, um, you know, you cannot turn this in at the last minute. Okay. There's issues with, especially now, there's less personnel, and there was some issues with the last submission of the fifth fee proposal that went on, and maybe that because of during the holidays and stuff like that, and right after the government shutdown ended. So they had some issues there. So don't wait till the last minute. All right. So when should we put the RFP parts back together again? Should we check for trigger words now? Yes, definitely. Right now, you should still keep every section separate, deconstruct your old proposal, and go through every single line. There's stuff in the proposals that I wrote that mentioned COVID, because we had just gotten out of that. And I'm going to take all that out. And boy, there was a lot of trigger words. We dodged a bullet. And I don't think we have as many as some other people have. So right now, all your sections should be separate, because I don't want to start merging or editing down until I know for sure how many pages we're allowed to have. But you definitely should be answering it now and going through the trigger words. Act like the questions that you have in your 2021 proposal are the final questions. Okay, they may not be, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be. What's different is the way we answered. And you want to make sure that if you have sentences that make statements without a source, like this is why the program's needed, or there's so many poor students at the target school, that's why they need this program. Says who? I mean, you can get that point across, but now you want to make sure that whenever you throw something out there like that, it's not an editorial. So you're going to have to say, according to the target school principal, according to the target school teachers, according to the talent search staff or the EOC staff, they see, the reasons they think why so many students are not going to college is because of X, Y, and Z. See how instead of the reason why students are not going to college is X, Y, and Z, says who? I was guilty of that. I'm sure when you look through, especially in your needs section, when you put the table out there, there should be just one or two sentences at the most explaining the why there's so many low-income families in the target area compared to the nation, to the state and nation, why there's so few students from the target schools going on to college. That why should be linked to someone saying or telling you the why, even if it's your own staff, even if it's your own director, even if it's your own PI. Okay, just don't throw it out there without saying according to X, Y, and Z. Okay, so don't put it together now. Okay, you're going to wait to put it together once the RFP gets out. Will reviewers be looking at grants to address staff turnover? You mean past proposals? They won't have any clue. You only in the proposal, in the needs section, you want to talk about all the gloom and doom. You don't even want to offer a solution. And that's what I used to do in the needs section. I used to say, here's the gloom and doom. Oh, but here we are to rescue the day if you fund us. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to replace it with the why. This is why it's so gloom and doom, according to a person. Okay. This is why this is the case. This is why these are some of the issues faced by homeless and foster care youth. Okay. Now, in the rest of the proposal, I turn around and use the rest of the proposal to make it look like we're the greatest thing that ever happened. And so when I get to the personnel section, I'm probably going not to mention or bring up anything that we've had a hard time getting folks to apply. So this is why we're not asking for a master's degree as a requirement. No, there's nothing negative in the rest of the proposal. Okay. Just in the beginning, and you don't volunteer that information, and the readers won't have access to, they're not supposed to know you. They're not supposed to know about you. So they wouldn't have a clue as to, nor for the money they're getting, would they want to research and see if there's any issues with staff turnover. Okay. All right. So any advice for EOC applicants whose target area has a high numbers, but not high percentages of low income, low educational attainment when compared to state and national data? Okay. Your target area is probably too big, because it's not just about the high numbers. I realize you have to have enough folks to serve, right? Every year, 500, 850, some have 1,200, somehow higher. It could be, like I said before in other sessions, here I'm located here outside of Dallas. I could never say the city of Dallas was my target area. Why? Because there's so many areas. I could never show the need. Like you're having a hard time. There's a lot of people, but I can't show the need. The same thing with the city of Fort Worth. I could never say the whole city of Fort Worth is my target area because I'd have the numbers, but I don't have a high percentage of low income first generation when compared to state or national rates. So what I have to do is I have to find the areas within the city that have those pockets of communities, tracks that are the low income. You all know in your city where in Fort Worth, it was Stop Six. In Fort Worth, it was the East Side. In Fort Worth, it was Diamond Hill, the North Side, those areas there, down by the Panther District. We called it that, the Panther District, because that was one of our clubs was in the Panther District, which was in the hospital district, but there was an area, there was a community there. So we wrote that we would serve those communities within the city. Now, you still have to make sure you have enough. So the reader says, okay, there's enough of a population there. But then you know that when you actually get refunded, that as long as the individual is low income first generation, which you can find enough of, it doesn't mean that they have to specifically come from those sub areas. So my guess, without seeing anything else, is that your target area is too big and that you need to focus on the pockets, the neighborhoods, that those are your sub-target areas that add up to be one area. Now, you handle that on a spreadsheet separate, and when you talk to the reader, you explain in the first couple of sentences that your one target area is made up of 4 or 5 or 6 neighborhoods within the city of Fort Worth. See, I'm not telling you the whole city. And these neighborhoods are Stop Six, Diamond Hill, blah, blah, blah. These areas traditionally or historically have had low income, first generation, yada, yada, yada. And from this point forward, we will refer to all these sub-target areas as the one target area. Okay, that's what you're going to have to do because you will not get points if you cannot show the need. You may, maybe you have enough prior experience points to survive taking a hit like that, but you don't want to start. That's the very first question in the grant. You don't want to start off like that with a reader. Okay. If anything, maybe later on, not rise to the occasion, so to speak. From the very get-go, that's not a good, that's good. The reader's going to be, oh Lord, you're going to make me write a whole bunch of stuff as to why, you don't have the need right from the beginning. I wish I could have said, they have a high, blah, blah, blah. It sounds good to me. Let's move on. Believe me, it's more work for the readers to take off points than it is to give you praise. So they want to. They actually want to. Most of them do, right? No thought any day now. The RFP, if you logged on late, it could be the second, it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow. Every morning I wake up and I've got my folks keeping me updated. And first thing I look on my phone to see if I received any overnight or early morning texts from anybody saying, hey, this is going to drop, or look what I found in the Federal Register. Okay, so act like it's out. Okay, work on your sections. Act like you're just waiting to find out what the CPPs are. How much would you go up from the target area baseline to be ambitious? Would you go 10% higher, 15% higher, or more than 15% higher? Thank you so much for this question, Kim. So it all depends. I can't answer that without asking you a question. First, I'd have to ask you which objective are you talking about? And what is your baseline right now? Then we can talk about the percentages. So I just can't give you a blanket number because it all depends on which objective is it and what's your baseline right now. As a general rule, and I don't hold me to this, but if for some reason you couldn't tell me which objective it was and you couldn't tell me what your baseline is, I hate to give you an answer, but I would say this time around my range, a whole bunch of depends, would be, I wouldn't go any lower than a 10 percentage point increase, and I wouldn't go any higher than 20. But again, I'm speculating because I haven't talked to you about which objective it is and what is your baseline. So when you all talk to other folks, You need to let them know, look, what's your college going, your college enrollment objective? Well, first of all, they should say, well, first of all, before we talk about that, what is your baseline? Oh, well, right now it's at 20%. Okay, so let's talk. Let's talk about that. Now we can have a conversation, okay? But just to, give you, just off the top of my head, which I did, but I don't like to because I can't, I don't feel comfortable that being the complete answer. Okay, it all depends which objective and where are you at right now. So that's why you have to hurry up and get your baselines. And those baselines have to show that they're doing worse than state or national rates or some sort of comparison. And for those of you in Talent Search, all your schools as individually have to be doing worse than your comparison. Maybe the average is happening, but I can point out you got two schools there that are doing better than the state. What are you going to do about that? Well, what do you mean? The average is below. I said, you're going to lose a point for each one of those. And if you can't afford it, I'm just letting you know it's not going to be a perfect proposal. Well, how do I get around from not doing it? I said, well, if it happens consistently that school across the board in all your other tables is not helping you, you might have to consider if you can blessing them and taking them off as an official target school and leave them as a non-target school. And again, you can't, it's a big decision. That's why you got to pull the data. And you also have to see how many schools are listed as official target schools with the Department of Ed, because you can't totally revamp them all. You have to keep at least 51% of the same schools. Okay, at least. I don't even feel comfortable going down to 60%, definitely. But, I don't want it. Why? Because you could lose your prior experience points if you do a total revamp. Okay. Right. 33%. Okay. In comparison. Okay. So 33% for the baseline for post-secondary enrollment. I may go up to 45. Maybe. Again, maybe just off the top of my head, someone said they had a 33% baseline. I might go up to 45. That's 12 percentage points. Lowest will be 43. No lower than 43. Okay. And again, people say, well, this is what I did last year on my APR. And my bosses, we got a really high rate. Like Talent Search says, oh, we got, 70% of our kids in. Yay. Well, then you show up the next day and you tell your boss, well, you know what? I think we're going to set our baseline, our college enrollment at 45%. They'll be like, wait a minute, you did 70%. Why are you going back down to 45%? Isn't that going to look bad? Well, first of all, the readers have no access to your APR. Okay, so they don't know what you've done unless you bring it up in the proposal, which I don't recommend. The other thing is, remember that this is baseline on data that's supposed to be students you haven't served. They are students who have not been served by services. They're the whole target school or combination of target schools. So of course you're going to do better, you would think, with your own group of students. But that's why you need to make sure you can explain to your boss or your PI or even your own grant writer as to why, why are we going backwards? You're not. You pulled new data and you have to set your objectives on the new data. You kind of have to forget you have an APR that has percentages. And I know you can't help it. As a director, I couldn't. It was in the back of my mind, but you've got to put it out of your mind and focus on what is the baseline now and what do you have to do so it's not too ambitious. Okay. All righty. So hopefully that helps. Is low income a trigger word? It's not a trigger word as long as you remind the reader that per the Talent Search regulations. So initially I may use low income or first generation in my opening paragraph, but then I put in parentheses as defined in the Talent Search or EOC regulations. And then after that, I just say Talent Search eligible, EOC eligible. You will never see me use the word disadvantaged, low income, first generation again. I will always say Talent Search eligible, EOC eligible. Okay. Now, granted, some of the questions actually say low income or say underrepresented. That's fine if the question says it, but I'm not going to use it in my answer. Okay. So low income by itself is not a trigger word if you remind the reader that potential first generation and low income are regulatory language that's required by the Talent Search regulations but you don't have to keep repeating. If you still feel, ugh, just say Talent Search eligible for the rest of the grant, or EOC eligible. Okay. Wrong mouse. Okay. EOC. Previously, I was told that I should not use the census data for the baseline for GED completion, college admissions, college applications, and enrollment objectives because not all individuals 25 years or older are interested in going to college. What data can I use to establish the baseline? Well, first of all, I didn't think in the census you could get the information. Can you? Tell me where I can get the baseline for college admissions, and college applications, and maybe college enrollment, but for financial aid and college applications baseline, I can't find that in the census. And if I had it, I would take it, even if it's for adults 25 years or older, because that's more appropriate for y'all. I can almost see where that would be a question working with Talent Search kids, which, by the way, we're stuck using the individuals 25 years or older that do not have a college degree as our baseline, or do have a college degree, the opposite, as our baseline for our college attainment objective. Most of us are stuck with doing that. And I always felt awkward doing that because I'm like, well, our kids, 6 years after they graduate from high school, they're not 25 yet. So I always felt, weird using that, but that was the only thing we could use, unless you could figure out from the target schools for Talent Search, asking them, hey, counselor, the kids that graduated 6 years from here, can you tell me how many have graduated from college? They'll look at you crazy, right? So because you can't find that, you have to go with what you have. So the same thing here in EOC. Not all individuals are interested in going to college. Well, I don't know how else to find it. And you could, at best, this is an approximate, and you've got to come up with something. What you could utilize is talking to folks in the GD Center. It doesn't have to come from the census. I mean, a lot of the EOC stuff, besides the number of low-income individuals and the number that have not graduated or do not have a bachelor's degree or have dropped out, can come from the census. But all these other things, GED completion, college admissions application baseline, financial aid application admissions, you can't get that from the census. You're going to have to go and get it from another source. Workforce, any others, GD centers. And the same thing can be said by, who knows? Well, how do they know they're not interested in going is my question. Otherwise, you could just lift up your and say, okay, oh, well, since I can't tell for that, I'm not going to submit. I'm not going to get the data. I'm going to go ahead and get the data and blame it on the source, but I don't think that's going to be questioned by a reader as to, well, how do you know they're interested in doing it, So I wouldn't worry about that. I would worry about trying to find, and if you have found in the census where you can pull this information, please let me know. Baseline for regular graduation is 76%. Should we aim for 86 graduation rate? Not the comparison. Note the comparison graduation rate is also 86. So you're telling me that you're comparing it to 86. Well, I would say yes, that the 10, and you say a 10 percentage point increase would be attainable and ambitious. But you know what? In the objective section, in the needs section, I would say, oh, look, we're at 76%, only 76% compared to 86%, right? Okay, so in the needs section, see how I compared it, and I made sure I have to compare how bad we're doing to something else, right? Now, when I go to the objective section, in order to avoid the reader coming in and saying, what you trying to do? You trying to match the state or the national rate? I don't think so. I'm not going to mention the comparison again. I'm going to say, oh, look at the baseline is only 76%. I already got the need, but then I'm going to say, but we're going to go up to 86%, or I'll say the baseline is 76%. And we're going up to 86%, which is a 10 percentage point increase, which is going to be ambitious, due to the following issues that were talked about in the needs section. So I'll bring up other stuff in the needs section, that kind of relates to that graduation objective, like something that fell under that same category, the extra stuff that we pulled, but I'm never going to bring up the comparison data. So the needs section is where you get the baseline and you compare it to somebody else. The woe is me. But in the objective section, don't bring over the comparison. I mean, just state, oh, look how bad it is, look how sad it is. Just bring up the baselines, okay? Because if you say as compared to 86%, and then I see that you went up to 86%, I could be a real smart, and say, oh, well, I don't think, with your resources, why are you trying to match the state? Well, shoot, yes, they could remember and go back and look, but I'm not going to spoon feed them 3 sets of percentages. I'm just going to spoon feed them the objective section, my baseline, and where I want to go. Not, oh, look what it was before, because I passed that hurdle. I need to show ambitious yet attainable. The ambitious, I'll focus on all the other things like, well, there's a high number of low-income students in that area. And there's a high percentage of parents that don't have or individuals that don't have a college degree. So those two things are why it's going to be ambitious. Notice how I never brought up the comparison to the percentage to our comparison, because I do not want to be compared to our comparison rate in the objective section. I don't want to feed that to them. Granted, they could go back and find it, but for the money they're getting paid, they're not going to do it. Should we remove the student that graduates with a rigorous course of study from the regular diploma percentage? Well, this is the way I see it. No, 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 no. So all your students are involved in the regular diploma, all of them. So if I have 100 seniors, and remember that objective is not 9th to 12th grade graduation. I learned that the hard way. And I did it for years, almost 25 years, where I gave the reader, oh, look at our low rate of students that graduated with a regular diploma since they were 9th grade to 12th grade. No, 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 no. It's from 12th grade in the fall till 12th grade in the spring. So if I have 100 seniors in the fall, okay, out of those 100 seniors, we're not going back in time, just of the 100 seniors in the fall of 2024, for example, how many seniors graduated with a regular diploma by the end of spring 2025? The same school year, right? Fall, spring, 100 here, and we had 90 that graduate with regular diploma. So that would be 90%. Okay. Now, out of the same 100 students, okay, for the rigorous diploma, out of the same 100 students as got the regular, out of the 100 students, and 90% of them graduated, what with the regular, from that percentage, how many graduated having completed the A through G courses or the honors course or whatever your rigorous secondary school program of study is? So you see, they all have to get the regular diploma plus the rigorous. Okay, plus the rigorous. So that's why your rigorous graduation rate should be lower than your regular, because regular is just getting the regular diploma. Rigorous is regular diploma plus something extra. So it should drop. There should be a difference. People say, oh, well, we use the same objective all this time. It's the same. You can't have it the same. Then you better switch your definition and purposely pick a definition. And the definitions, by the way, for a rigorous secondary school program of study, you can't make them up. There's 6 of them. I have a document in the Talent Search Google Drive. It should be floating around there that brings up from the regulations what your choices are. So yes, sometimes you have to pick a definition that forces that gap. Okay, so you can show a need, so you can get funded, knowing that you will probably never meet that objective because it's going to be hard to meet it in the future. And you have to be okay with that. Okay, because if you don't show a need now, you're going to lose more points now than if you go ahead, bite the bullet, and pick that more rigorous definition and try to deal with it moving in the future. And worst case scenario, if you never meet that objective moving forward, it's only 1.5 points off of prior experience. Okay, gone are the days. I know right now you're probably loving that, oh, rigorous and regular. Those are easy objectives. Well, moving forward, I don't think they're going to be easy anymore, at least the rigorous, because I don't see how you can show a need, you know, if you don't latch on to something that's more difficult to achieve and be okay with knowing that you're not going to have the resources, the time and effort to achieve it. But I'd rather die later than now. You want to die now or later? I want to make it through. I want to get funded. I want to survive to get funded so I can at least fight to see if we can meet that objective. And it's going to be super, super low. You said it's super low, you know, because it should be harder. It should be rigorous. It's not a fair objective to give to Talent Search. I agree, because we have no money, but life's not fair. My college likes to put a student testimonial story at the beginning of the grant proposal. They did this last time. Is that a good idea? I'm EOC. If you have room, fine, but I'm a reader. I'm tired. Uh, I want the answers to the question. So I always try to have the first answer to the question that earns points because they have a score sheet and they're looking for the answers. They're not getting paid anything hardly. So they are quickly trying to go through this because they're rationalizing, I'm trying to, why am I doing this? Okay, well, let me crank these out real fast. Where's the answer to the question? Don't go on and on because a lot of people won't read it. Okay, honestly, they're going through the answers. Okay, if you have the room, and you can put that. But I mean, I don't care for them, but that's me. You could have someone that cares for it and puts them in a good mood. But do you have the room? And don't go on and make sure that at least on the first page of your proposal, you don't go on and on about the target area or anything else because you want to have the answer to your first question on the first page. Okay. A reader will know this is going to be a good, fast read versus oh no, they're telling stories already. Everything's going to be a story. And when you write these grants, it's the opposite. You give the reader the answer in a table, you summarize it in a very short and sweet sentence, and then you put the why. And that's when you can, rather than have a student testimony at the beginning, why not throughout your needs section, whenever there's a table of data, throw in something about the why, it's so bad, but not a student testimonial. This is the other thing. The testimonial story, it should not be talking about how great the program is. Or if we didn't have EOC, this is what happened. No, 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 no. Everything's gloom and doom in the needs section. If anything, they can talk about how bad it is right now, to add to it, but not to, this is why we need the program. They've saved my life. I could do this now. No, that would be perfect for an evaluation or for your website. But right now, we just need gloom and doom. And if they're going to tell a story about how gloomy and doomy it is for them, fine. But not one whisper of how great your program is going to be the needs section. You are not to rescue the grant in the needs section. You got to make it look like it's awful, terrible situation because you've got the rest of the proposal to talk great about what you're going to do. Okay. So I would not probably waste the space. An EOC with veteran employees, I will only be able to budget for 3 employees. I pray for an increase soon. You will not get an increase. And by the way, for everybody out there who has an existing Talent Search or EOC grant, you cannot increase your numbers. Not that you want to, but even if you wanted to, you cannot. And be prepared to ask for the same amount of money you're getting today, minus carryover. So yes, you will. That's the biggest challenge with Talent Search and more so with EOC. You can only budget for the employees and have hardly any money left over unless the college or agency is going to go ahead and provide you with resources. So you will not get an increase. So you got to make it work. And that's going to be the challenge. And yes, when you have people that have been there forever, they take up, 90% of the budget, and you have to just write and make sure the readers understand that it's a very case management oriented, where the people power, so to speak, staff power. No trips, no travel, downplay that. Those are permissible services. You can make it work. EOC and Talent Search are very much based on the folks, your advisors going out there and providing the services. Again, with Talent Search, trips are not required. If you don't have any trips in your budget because you can't afford it, so be it. You know that in reality, people come and go. You'll have some money every year, so you could do some trips during the summer. It's not the end of the world. But in the proposal, you got to make it look like you have enough staff. As long as you can show me as a reader that you have enough staff and they've got the minimal supplies, to make it happen, and you make sure that plan of operation focuses on demonstrating how you utilize your staff as facilitators to provide direct services, you'll be fine. It's not no one, it's not easy. Believe me, I've done it. I've lived it. I've seen the budgets. I've got budgets. I had to, like I told you, I was doing one budget and I had to figure out how to cut $30,000 out of it. Easier for me to say I don't have a budget, I don't have a live program, but it's challenging. And it just reminds me over and over again. I said, well, or I have to tell folks, you don't have to do that. That's not going to give you any extra points. I mean, in fact, if you force that position, if you force that part-time admin position, you're going to lose points because I'm going to say that you don't have enough people power. No one ever has lost a point for not having an admin. Okay, but people have lost points for not having enough advisors. Or definitely, you know what? There's nobody who's 100% on this grant. You have a whole bunch of part-time people. That doesn't look good either. Well, something's got to give. Something's got to give. Right? Not easy decisions. So that's why you do the budget and then you draft your plan of operation and your quality of personnel so it matches. That's the other thing that kind of drives me crazy when I start reviewing proposals and I notice that they mention positions that are not in the budget. And I'm like, what, or they're called something different. And I realize, that we have a lot of HR titles, outreach specialist, branch manager level 2, believe it or not. That's what was my title at one of the HRs. But did I call myself that? No. In the proposal, I was a project director. And then we have counselors that the HR says, oh, we're called outreach counselors. I said, well, then do y'all have license? Y'all are licensed counselors? Well, no, but that's what we have to, label ourselves with HR. I said, that's totally fine. But in the proposal, don't put that you're a counselor because when we look at the quality of personnel, you're going to lose a point because the reader is going to say, who could be a licensed counselor? Excuse me, you're not requiring them to have a licensed counseling degree or experience in that, and their title is a counselor. So a lot of times I have to simplify a budget for the proposal by putting in titles temporarily in the budget and in the grant that a reader will connect to. We all know what a project director does, but it might be hard if you say they're a branch unit manager, right? What the heck is that? And then with project advisor, you know exactly what that is universally, right? Everyone knows that. But if I call it student outreach specialist or student navigator, or all these other crazy HR terms that I understand. I'm not asking you to change that, but I'm telling you, you need to simplify it for the budget. Another one is like sometimes we call it administrative assistant a coordinator. That could get confused. Call it an administrative assistant. Simple, make it simple, make everything matchy. And when you get refunded, what the positions are, but I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot of confusion. These folks are going to read fast. You want them to get exactly the answers they need and not to be confused. And lots of our grants is if you have multiple grants, and I used to have it, so I'm not being critical. I'm telling you, because I had 5 grants and it was a house of cards. I was split, but then I got, I tried to split like I'd heard other people doing. And my program officer was very wise. He told me at that time, you know what, you can be split probably as many times as you want as the director, but you're going to have at least one full-time assistant director or project coordinator or lead advisor on each one of these if you want to keep staying in business. You've got to do that. You're going to lose points, going forward. If you are split, you have to stay split. But then I'm going to take the readers, we're going to tell the readers to take more points off. If you're split, that's fine. I mean, I couldn't do anything about it. Don't revert to 100%. You got to grin and bear it and accept that you're going to lose a point. But if you don't have anybody else, like an assistant manager, assistant, a coordinator, assistant director, or even a lead advisor that is in charge when you're not there because you're split, you're going to lose 2 points. So that means moving stuff around the budget, and that means some things like student travel and administrative assistance might have to go. A little tip for talent search, one of the required services we have to do is connections to high quality tutoring. Best case scenario is if you have a little money aside to do some of your own in-person traditional tutoring with online tutoring and your supplies, that would be great. If you can't afford both, then that's okay, but you have to have something. Don't have any tutors plus no line item and mention of online tutoring. That's going to be a problem because I think if you just focus on saying you're going to refer them to the school, you're going to have a hard time explaining why that's high quality. I mean, who says that, the tutoring we do and the online tutor is high quality, but I have a little bit more control over it, that kind of thing. Okay. All righty. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Cindy, you'll have to send me an email about that, or I'll send you the link so we can meet separately about that. But I am totally booked working on SSS APRs until the 18th. Besides, looking over my shoulder for this RFP to drop. Right? Anybody else? Any other questions? Leah, I don't see anything else. I think we're good. Y'all are so good about time. Thank you all so much. Oh, here's another question. Are you saying that we should show tutoring in the budget somewhere, either in humans? Yes. Yes. Talent Search, you should not only show it in the budget, but you need to talk about it when you briefly talk about your objectives and why your objective is ambitious yet attainable. Because I'm thinking for the rigorous secondary school program of study one, that really hard objective on graduation with the extra, that's where you would mention, because it's gonna happen because we're either you could do all three things. You could say, I'm gonna do three things: refer them to other programs at the school, whatever, but that's not by itself, that would be weak. Two, we're gonna have some tutoring at one of the schools and one of the subjects going on. And three, an online for those students at some of the other target schools and some of the other subjects. You mention it in your objective section briefly, and then in your plan of operation, when you talk about your services, you mention it again. And then finally in the budget. So by the time they get to the budget, it's the third time they're reminded that you do in-person tutoring and also online tutoring. So yes, you need to, big, thank you for asking that question, because I was just assuming a lot there. See what happens when you assume? It's not just in the budget, but it's going to be something that if I were training these readers, I would say, you know what? I know how to get these folks. See where they mention tutoring and how they mention tutoring. And did they mention why it's high quality tutoring? Well, it could be because you provided the tutors with training and that you're monitoring them constantly. Or getting feedback from the students at the end of the semester. And remember, in Talent Search, it's not all these students that get rigorous, because remember, if it's a super hard, only a small number. So your objective is really small, and the number of students that are getting the tutoring has to be small. The high quality equals low quantity. High quality equals low quantity. It's like on a plane. A Talent Search plane where you have 500 students, only 10 or 12 of them or 15 are in first class. And the kids in first class are getting the RSSPS, the Rigorous Secondary School Program of Study, tutoring, monitoring. It's like a mini upward bound with a small number of Talent Search kids that are supposedly getting or trying to get the rigorous extra stuff after regular diploma that you focus on. Okay. So tutoring in your grant, you say, we'll focus on them. But of course, in reality, if some other students need tutoring, you're not going to tell a student, no, that's for the kids in the rigorous courses. You open it up. But that's how you make it realistic. And that's how you can say, well, 2 tutors for 500 students. You're not going to say you're tutoring 500 students. You're going to say of those students that are planning to graduate with a rigorous secondary school program of study, they're the ones that will be offered these services. Okay. EOC with salaries and fringe, I can only afford 2 full-time people, director and 1 advisor. Will that be acceptable? You have to show me it'll be acceptable in your plan of operation. It has to happen. You don't have a choice, right? So you make it work, unless you win the lottery, but you're going to have to make it work. So, and this is where you do the budget. And some people are coming to the conclusion that they cannot afford the program anymore, unless their institution or agency is going to fill in the gap. I have enough to pay for, some people say they don't have enough to pay for salary and fringe. The money's gone. Well, they're going to have to, the agency is going to have to support it, or this decision will be made that we cannot afford this program anymore, right? You can make it acceptable if you show that you've got enough people to pay for staff and it's a very people-driven, staff-driven in your plan of operation. You downplay that you don't need all the bells and whistles, you just need the people. And of course, if you need supplies, curriculum, computers, your agency or college is going to have to say that they're going to cover it as in kind. You can also show that in your budget as a different column where it says institutional commitment. So if they see the federal money for personnel, and they can see where your institution or agency is going to fill in the gap, then a reader will see, okay, this is acceptable. Okay. But I would ask, well, who's going to cover everything else? You know, so I need to see that. I would have been first told about it in the applicant and community support section. That's where you would have mentioned, that, oh, we got it going on because we have the agency or institution that's going to pay for a whole position, which I do have some clients for Talent Search where their college is paying for a full-time advisor plus fringe. So I bring it up there, and then I bring it up, again in the budget in the institutional section. I have two advisors, one project funded, one through the institution, and it's adding up how much institutional funds, either hard money or in kind, depending how comfortable your college feels about doing that. But they're going to have to show. I mean, some people say, well, my college doesn't want to like commit to the in kind. Well, then, it's going to look like it's insufficient. I mean, maybe you have enough for staff, but what about supplies? Again, travel, they'll need travel to go out to the sites so that, I'm not talking about conference travel. I'm talking about mileage to go see clients, especially in EOC. The minimum computers, I mean, where's that coming from? Where's your database coming from? That kind of thing. There's not a lot, but there are some critical pieces. So you're going to have the discussion and draft the budget out and say, this is how much I need. Otherwise, it may not be enough so they could point it out that it's not enough funding. Okay. So it depends how it's acceptable. It can be acceptable if you have the resources there to offset the differences so you get the bare minimum. It's tough, y'all. It's tough with no extra money coming in. Um, um, it's all about the money, right? Thank you all for joining us. Sorry that we ran over, but we had some really good questions. Thank you, Leah, for being there, and thank you all for your questions. And I guess we'll see you all, or we're meeting next week, right? I think it's a holiday, but I'm going to be here anyway. All right. And so the minute I hear anything, please, y'all, I'm going to post it on the blog. Okay. So the minute I hear anything at all, and if you all get anywhere or talk to anybody, talk to any of your program officers, please, please, please send me an email. Right. Thank you all. Yes, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel later this afternoon. We'll post information about it and with those links to those two things you asked about, the GEPA and what was the other one, Leah? It was about the
objectives. Yes.
Yes. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a great week. Again, not trying to freak you out, just trying to get you motivated, right? Y'all take care. Thanks, everyone.